Hello and welcome to the Tech and Sports podcast. Tech and Sports is a show about how technology is revolutionizing all the major sports as well as health and fitness. You can find it on your podcast service of choice. My name is Alex Coop, and I'm here with the coolest person, Mandy Kovacs.
Hello. Yes, I am.
This week, Mandy spoke with Teresa Payton, a cybersecurity expert who was formerly the White House CIO under President George W. Bush, about the cybersecurity ramifications of Bryan Colangelo's alleged burner Twitter accounts that revealed sensitive team information, plus all the biggest news from the last week, new apps or wearables, and your weekly concussion update. But before we get to that, we would really appreciate it if you would review and rate Tech and Sports Podcast. We've been growing the show over the last few months, and we really appreciate all the support so far. And with that, sit back and relax because the Tech and Sports crew is entering the game.
All right, so first up in news today is some NBA news. Apparently during Game 3 of the NBA Finals between Cleveland and Golden State, several of the league's referees live tweeted the game and both reacted to calls during it and even answered viewers' questions in real time, all on the NBA's official referee Twitter account. Referees have been responding to decisions throughout the playoffs, but this is the first time they've set out to follow a game from start to finish and live tweet the whole thing. It's part of the NBA Referees Association's plans to connect with fans more throughout the season in hopes that they can be seen as relatable humans instead of monsters screwing over your team. I'm not sure if they're doing it for all the other games. We are recording this on Friday before the weekend, so just before Game 4, so there might not even be a next game with the Warriors up 3-0. But the pilot project did go well, so stay tuned to the Twitter hashtag RefWatchParty for more details and if it'll be available on Game 5.
Yeah, and if you look back, you can see some of the interactions the referees had with people on Twitter, and it was actually kind of interesting seeing them break down plays in real time, or as close as to real time as possible, and they were actually able to sort of explain themselves to some extent in terms of the decision making behind some of those calls. They managed to keep their cool because a lot of people were obviously furious as to what was going on.
Yeah, seriously.
With some of the calls, and people are just like, how can you live with yourself? But the stuff that the referees actually wrote on Twitter was constructive and concise and kind of gives you some good insights as to how they're analyzing the game and why calls are being made. Man, they still need to clean up that those reviews and replays, but this is a pretty interesting element to add to the game that I think benefits everyone.
Yeah, I really like this idea, and I think we saw earlier in the NHL season, one of the referees, Carey Fraser, often tweeted what he thought about some of the more controversial calls, but it never became like an organized thing. Like the NHL never really stepped in and asked him to do it for all the games. So the fact that the NBA has kind of sponsored this, like that's a great idea. Yeah. I would love to know more about different calls and how they're made. Yeah,
and currently when you watch games, they typically do turn to a former referee. I forget his name, it escapes me, but he does break down why a call was made, or in his opinion, why a call was made, which is pretty cool, and this is kind of a nice addition to that whole experience. So
yeah, what a great idea.
Hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we have news that Amazon has won the streaming rights for the English Premier League. And under the deal, Amazon will show 20 league matches a season for 3 years starting in 2019, which adds to its existing deal for a grand total of 52 Premier League matches on Amazon every single year. So this will be available for free to Amazon Prime UK members, and the deal also includes weekly highlight packages. So interestingly though, the Football Supporters Federation has actually criticized the deal, saying that there is too much live football on TV already, and this announcement will just push that number to record levels, which could hurt live game attendance. They also criticized that Amazon joining the party means that there are now 3 major broadcasters showing games, which means more subscriptions for fans. I personally think that criticism is a little, not necessarily unfounded, but I think it's BS, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think we have to also keep in mind that Amazon is just sort of barely getting its foot in the door here. Like, it's not streaming the entire season. This is a very small percentage of the games of that season. So I think this is actually, more choice for consumers, and streaming is the way to go. but Amazon is not taking this over yet. This is about like 10% of the Premier League games available to media companies, and it's still not overtaking the BT Sports and Sky services that are currently available there. So yeah, I think it's a little too far-fetched to say that it's going to hurt, live game attendance. Now there's too many choices and too much going on when it comes to the broadcasters. I don't think that's valid.
Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, and then speaking of streaming, Twitter has dissolved its live video team and consolidated the unit into its content partnerships team in a move that it says will make it easier to put together future deals. So the streamlining will hopefully make the process of aligning with new content partners more efficient. The new team will be run by a regional management structure rather than one organized by categories like news and sports, which it was in the past. And it's interesting to note that the person who used to lead the sports partnerships segment, Laura Froelich, will be the new overall head of U.S. partnerships, so we could see more sports-oriented deals going forward. Twitter recently announced more than 30 deals with companies like Walt Disney and NBC Universal to beef up its video offerings with more news, entertainment, and sports, and it's actually worked. The social media platform is reporting that the number of daily video views on its sites doubled in the past year, and the format has generated more than half of the overall expected ad revenue in just the past 2 quarters. So Twitter is clearly doing something right there. And next, we have a pretty funny tech fail. An IT sports analytics startup called Iceberg predicted, based on all the stats and data, that the Vegas Golden Knights would win Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Except Game 5 was last Thursday night, and they lost. So the Washington Capitals are now the Stanley Cup winners. Congratulations to them. I wasn't exactly rooting for them, but, they deserve it. But so Iceberg used artificial intelligence to look at all previous game data, including stats like successful passing rates, time in the offensive zone, scoring chances, shot attempts, puck possession, and a couple other different things to determine that Vegas had a 56% win probability of, taking the game. They were clearly wrong because, again, Vegas did lose. And so this kind of just shows that analytics and AI aren't perfect just yet, and they need a little bit more work before I think we can officially rely on them for things like this.
That's true. I mean, although 56% does not mean 100%. So
fair enough. Room for error there.
Yeah. It sounds like, based on what you said, they're actually pulling data from sort of the right categories. And obviously, if you crunch those numbers, that's the result you get. And hockey is a very unpredictable game.
That's true.
Puck bounces certain ways. It's a much faster game than most sports. So the unpredictability factor is certainly very high. But I don't know, 56% chance that they win. I think it could have gone either way, and it pretty much did. So
yeah, I guess it is pretty close.
I think it did all right. But yeah, it's we're certainly, no one should be relying on AI to predict matches or predict matches to the point where you're putting money on it. So
exactly.
Yeah, just careful there. But it's a good trial run.
Exactly. Okay, and next we have some golf news. Apparently Discovery Inc., which owns cable channels like TLC, Animal Planet, and of course the Discovery Channel, has just signed a $2 billion 12-year deal with the PGA Tour for international TV rights that start in 2019. So Discovery says they're going to build the Netflix of golf with this new deal that sees them get media rights into 220 markets for every single PGA Tour event. So they're going to be creating this new subscription streaming service centered around golf, which is expected to launch later this year. It's also worth noting that Discovery also owns exclusive rights to the Olympic content in Europe. So just like Amazon and Facebook and Twitter, they see the value in sports streaming. So again, we should keep an eye on them. Next up, we have a pretty entertaining story just in time for the World Cup this week. Sweden's national men's soccer coach, Jan Andersson, walks 2 hours every day to his work at Friends Arena in Stockholm. So a betting company called Oddset bought up all the outdoor advertising space along his daily commute and plan on showing messages from fans on these billboards in hopes that Andersson will see them. So this company will be choosing 40 messages a day out of the hundreds and thousands that have been submitted online. And the company says that they're doing this because everyone in Sweden thinks that they can do the coach's job. So to quote, "We thought we'd give them the opportunity to influence his strategy and tactics." So even the team itself is getting into it, with Sweden's center-back defender Pontus Jansson tweeting at his coach that he should actually be playing up front. The submissions will be screened for unacceptable language, but everything else is pretty much fair game. And Anderson himself even chimed in and says that he welcomes the tips and will look out for them during his walk. I think this is an amazing marketing strategy, and I also think it's just really funny, and I love that the coach is kind of playing along with it.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant marketing strategy as well, and I'm curious how far they'll let people go in terms of like their submissions.
Right?
So
I know, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I almost want to submit one just to be like, hi. Just like something so bad.
It's testing.
Yeah, just testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. I want to see what people post.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, we'll try to keep everyone updated on that. And then continuing with the World Cup for a bit, FIFA is teaming up with Fox Sports and IBM to use artificial intelligence to put together fan-requested highlight packages of FIFA content, both past and present. So the AI will be provided by Watson, IBM's supercomputer, and the footage comes from Fox Sports, which has exclusive broadcast rights to the World Cup this year and in 2022. So IBM Watson will sift through decades of FIFA highlights based on fan requests for things like specific goals, fouls, and more. The videos can be shared on social media, which is sponsored by FIFA's partner Adidas, and this whole project is meant to enhance the fan experience and engagement at the tournament. You can go to foxsports.com/FIFA World Cup highlights to access what they're calling the highlight machine to start creating your own specific package today. Again, I think this is a pretty cool idea, a lot of customization happening, and that's good for fans.
Yeah, and putting together highlight reels takes time, and if you think about it, that's a very good thing for an AI, for a machine to put together. And
exactly.
It takes a lot of it's a space sucker putting that together, manually. So if a computer can do it, that's great. And people love highlight reels. I mean, if you go on YouTube, for every single sport out there are just countless number of highlight reels that I think are getting better and better. Game recaps or just like player, career highlights, and I think that's a perfect thing for artificial intelligence to sort of swoop in and do on its own as well. So
yeah, I agree.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Okay, and then one last World Cup story today. Sports intelligence startup Stats Insight will be used by media providers, broadcasters, and commentators to power deeper storytelling around every match at this year's World Cup. So Stats Insight uses more than 35 years of research to deliver comparative data of play-by-play descriptions, in-game trends, and even social media content. So for this World Cup in Russia that starts this week, the company will send out 15 to 25 pre-game insights to all media people at least 24 hours before every match. The pre-game insights will include notes on previous meetings, their histories, upcoming milestones, and notable players and team rankings. During the game, these insights can be used by commentators to paint clearer pictures about what the game means using live context and real historical information. This tech is also used by the English Premier League and the French Ligue 1 during their regular seasons. And I mean, I'm a big fan of storylines in every sport, so I'm pretty excited for this, especially as someone who's not the biggest soccer fan, but I like to tune in for the World Cup. So I think this is going to be really cool for fans just like me, who maybe don't follow these players every single year, right?
That's true. Statistics and numbers do add an interesting element to storytelling, but I hope it doesn't overshadow or that broadcasters don't forget about the more personal storylines that about the players themselves, where they come from, or like what their attributes are, sort of the more stories that are less focused about the numbers. So I hope they can still balance the two and ultimately deliver a better storytelling experience, live during the games, and not just suddenly get sucked into the numbers and the stats and be overwhelmed by that. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance the two.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they'll include stuff like that. I don't see why not, especially if it does kind of relate to numbers. Like if a player has done badly one year over the other, I mean, maybe it's because of a personal issue, so maybe they will talk about that storyline.
Yeah, and I don't watch a whole lot of live soccer, but they obviously do refer to stats already, so it's not like this is completely new to them. I imagine this way is just going to be a lot easier for them to organize it and to search for specific stats that they want to incorporate into whatever they want to say about the game or the storytelling. So I think ultimately we're going to see a good delivery of stories and interesting facts. So,
yeah, I agree. Okay, and then that's it for soccer, finally. But next, we have a really super cool story about something that's never been done before. So an athletic injury researcher at the University of Wisconsin-Madison is teaching an undergraduate summer course this year that's focused on studying athlete monitoring technology. So the assistant kinesiology professor teaching the 3-week course is named David Bell, and he's the director of the Wisconsin Injury and Sport Laboratory. He says the course is meant to give students a working understanding of how to use monitoring tools from an athlete training perspective for team sports, and as far as he knows, this is the first undergraduate course of its kind. The course is supposed to leave students knowing what the most popular and innovative technologies being used today are, and they'll be taught about data analysis and things like visualization. They'll go over the different monitoring tools that are popular today, including wellness software that can assess an athlete based on things like mood and sleep. And they'll also have hands-on learning, and will go to a real training facility to do real-life exercises and drills with this technology, which will give themselves unique data sets to work with and test in this 3-week course. So the primary focus of the class will be rehabilitation, and it'll actually become a permanent part of the kinesiology department's course offerings during the next school year. I do believe this course is going on right now, and I think there's 9 or 10 students signed up to it, which is not bad considering it's a summer class, and I mean, who wants to do those? But I mean, again, I love this idea. I think it's really cool. I would definitely take that if it was offered at my university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or at my previous university.
Right.
As we are no longer in school.
No, super interesting idea. And yeah, hopefully it grows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to see that further. Okay, and then last but not least, a company called Arcos is using Microsoft's artificial intelligence to help golfers who don't use a human caddy when they play golf. So Arcos has developed screw-in sensors that are put on a golfer's bag, which are then paired with its smartphone app and can offer a golfer tips on what clubs to use based on a golfer's tendencies, as well as elevation changes, weather, the location of hazards, and the historical performance of similar golfers. So as I mentioned, it is powered by Microsoft's AI, and the app is called Caddy 2.0 because it's the second version of the app. And the app is based on a database of more than 100 million shots in over 1 million rounds of golf on more than 37,000 courses worldwide. So that's a lot of data. Mm-hmm. It's also mapped more than 418 million points on different golf courses around the world. So Arcos can tell a player how far they're going to hit with each club. It can reveal where their misses tend to finish and provide advanced analytics about their game. For example, the app can display an aerial photo of the hole that a golfer is on and the distance it expects a player to hit based on different clubs. It can then suggest which club would work best at each stage, like their initial drive, and then down to the putting in the green, and then the expected score if the golfer follows all of this or not. So the company does say that you can choose to listen to the app or not, but at least you'll be making an informed decision based on data provided by the app. So I'm not that much of a golfer, but I've definitely gone quite a number of times, and I think this would be really useful, especially for beginners, right?
Yeah, and I'd like to see this thing in action and like actually follow a golfer around. Like I just imagine it like tumbling over or like just not being able to make it through certain parts of the course, but this is just like a logical path forward for golf and like the application of AI in golf. And there are already tons of apps that help golf players with their game. I'm wondering when or if at all professional, like the actual professional golfers and like the actual big events will allow this type of technology to ever be implemented.
That's actually really interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
If that's going to be, if the barrier of entry is going to be too high, or if they just say flat out, no AI in our tournaments, but totally makes sense for this kind of thing to crop up. And yeah, if you don't have a caddy, then this is a pretty cool replacement.
Yeah, and I believe it's free. So there you go.
Awesome. All right, moving on to apps and wearables. So a Finland-based developer, Sunto9, they just announced Sunto 9, which is their their most recent multi-sport GPS watch. And what's cool about this is that it focuses on the traditional sort of GPS tracking and other types of stat tracking for various exercises and things like that, but there's a really heavy focus on battery. So the way it conserves, the focus is on battery life, and the way it does that is through its fused track algorithm. So it actually combines the GPS and motion sensor data, and then it allows the user to lower the GPS power, therefore reducing the battery drain without actually lowering the accuracy of the watch. So juggling quite a few things there to preserve power, but also maintain performance. And it's also smart and customizable, and it's available for approximately $800 Canadian. And so that's pretty interesting. I think that's always a concern when you're out and about and all of a sudden you're low on power and you don't want to lose all your data. So, the fact that an algorithm is keeping track of that and sort of anticipating how hard you've been going and whether or not it should be pushing the computing power at that time, that's pretty interesting. So that seems like a pretty good pickup. And if you have $800 or approximately, then that might be the wearable for you.
I know. I was kind of sold on this because I have a Fitbit Ionic and I love it. I love tracking my steps and all that stuff. But I think it first retailed for just under $400 Canadian. So I don't know if I would be willing to pay double that price just for a slightly better battery.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they don't really specify how much better the battery is because my Ionic will last me almost a week, maybe like 5 or 6 days. If it'll last me like a month or 2 months, then I'd consider maybe paying an extra $400.
I think it's safe to say it's not going to last that long.
No, so I don't know if it's worth that price point.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, the idea, concept, and the tech powering it and the tech that's behind it is interesting, and I'm sure someone will build on top of that and make it better and more affordable. But this is a step in the right direction when it comes to the concept. And then moving on to the other wearable story that we have, our own Eric Emmon, he reported... he covered the Canadian Printable Flexible Electronics Symposium.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, CPES 2018, where the IntelliFlex's 2018 Startup of the Year award was announced, and it went to XCO's signature product, the Sport Bioanalytics Performance Monitoring System. So basically, it's a little gizmo that athletes or patients can tuck into their clothing or equipment, and it gets paired with a connected tracking hub, and then it tracks timing, person's timing, motion, heartbeat, breathing rate, various other bits of information, and it could actually be collected by up to 16 devices. So there's the IoT market is expanding, and this is obviously tapping into that by allowing the information to be collected by so many devices. And according to Eric Emmon's story, the reason it got won the award is over the other pitches is because not only did the device address some of the pain points that come with other tracking technology, but it also it presented a good idea for actually like marketing it and scaling it, and that was a very attractive element to the product. So, congratulations to XCO, and it's pretty cool. I also covered the day one of that symposium, and a lot of talk about flexible technology and where that's going, and there's some pretty neat technology out there right now that actually lets you embed like actual software onto like fabric and like seating and like your clothing, but the problem is that a lot of the discussion was around like vibration. So once a seat or once you start running around and that type of technology is like embedded into your into whatever you're wearing or sitting on, but once you start like running around or something starts vibrating, that's when issues come up, because that's when some of the circuits can either break or malfunction or get damaged. So they still have to sort of figure out the durability of these products. But and this in particular, XCO's product is not, it's not that. It's like a little gizmo that you put on you that's not necessarily embedded into your clothing or anything like that. But it's playing with that technology, and like I said, the actual flexible stuff that will be embedded into other items down the road, that will be super interesting as well. But we're just not quite there yet. But
interesting space.
Yeah, very. Alrighty. And then moving on to our concussion update of the week. BBC reported recently that medical staff will be able to review potential concussions on laptops under new plans discussed by the UEFA Soccer League. So this comes after Liverpool's Champions League final. So Real Madrid was defeated Liverpool recently in the final, and a lot of talk was around goalkeeper Loris Karius. I hope I'm saying his name right. And basically what happened was, I think this was in the first half, but someone crossed the ball across the middle. He was sliding over, and then a player from the opposing team sort of ran by and elbowed him in the head.
Oh dear.
And now lots of speculation as to whether it was on purpose, whether that player was pushed from behind, which led to the elbow to the head of Loris. But basically what happened after that is Loris kept playing. And so there's a lot of and then Liverpool lost. And a lot of people are pointing to Loris's bad performance after that hit. He let the ball slip through his fingers. Like, he made a couple bad mistakes, stuff that he would normally never allow. So there's a lot of speculation after that elbow to the head, he was probably concussed. Was he concussed? Should he have even played? So the lead of this story now stems from that, and it's they're actually going to be following the footsteps of the English Premier League, which in 2016 became the first league in the world to allow access to tablets in order for staff to rewind potentially concerning accidents. So interesting topic. A lot of people think that concussion symptoms immediately, or when someone gets hit, that it immediately results in someone stumbling around, looking dizzy or nauseous or something, and that's actually not the case. And this BBC story sort of talks to an expert who talks about that exact thing, and it's these symptoms. That's a misconception. That's not always the immediate end result. So of course players should be reviewed when hits like that happen. I think this is certainly a step in the right direction. The Premier League has already done this, so it's nice to see the Champions League, or in this case, the UEFA following in their footsteps as well. Because, if a player gets hit, the adrenaline is there. They're going to want to keep playing. Someone should
We see it in hockey all the time.
Exactly. So someone has to, with some objectivity, kind of look at what happened and tell the player, okay, you're good to go, or you're not good to go. And
yeah, because I remember like a couple of days ago, I was watching the replays of this game, and it was actually the misplays of the month. And this poor goalkeeper was on the list. I think out of the 30 misplays, he was on it twice or maybe even 3 times because of all the boneheaded moves he made. But they didn't actually show him getting hit in the head beforehand. So I'm watching these misplays being like, wow, like that guy sucks. Like how is he on a team that is now in the Champions League final, right? But if I had known that he'd been hit in the head first, that explains so much, right? Like you said, like these effects are not necessarily immediate. They may kick in within 5 minutes, within half an hour, within an hour, right? And this happened in the first half of the game. So by the end of it, he goes through almost 60 minutes of playing. So that makes a huge difference.
It's true. And you can't really tell how hard the hit to the head was when you see that play happen, but it really doesn't take much. And if someone's running at you kind of full tilt and all of a sudden they stick their elbow out, whether he got pushed from behind or not, but like you take an elbow to the head, from someone who's kind of running towards you, that's gonna hurt.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, well that was it for our concussion discussion today. Now we're going to move on to our real discussion.
That's right. So for this week's discussion, Mandy had a chance to speak with cybersecurity expert Teresa Payton about the security ramifications of Philadelphia 76ers general manager Bryan Colangelo and his alleged burner Twitter accounts that revealed sensitive team information and bashed his own players and former colleagues. So Payton was the former White House CIO under President George W. Bush and is now currently the CEO of a security counseling company called Fortalus Solutions. So let's see what she had to say about this ridiculous basketball scandal.
And so we're here today to talk about Bryan Colangelo's alleged burner accounts on Twitter and some of the ramifications of that. And so the investigation is finished today, and while they concluded that all of the accounts were likely created by his wife, they did confirm that Bryan was the source of the sensitive information that was shared on them, and now he's been let go by the Philadelphia 76ers. So my first question to you, I guess, is in cybersecurity, we always hear about how people are the most common weak spot, and human error is often the number one cause of security threats and breaches. So does this whole situation with Bryan Colangelo prove that? Because, I mean, there wasn't necessarily a hack or anything. No one got into the 76ers organization or stole information, but him going home and talking about this sensitive info with his wife, who then went online and tweeted some of this stuff, could be considered a breach of information, really. So does this kind of validate that old adage?
It really does. It really does kind of go back to that loose lips sink ships, and you have a variety of different things that could happen when you're sharing information that's trusted, privileged, confidential information with parties that you shouldn't be. So, for example, in this type of scenario, if they had an Alexa or a Google Home, or it could have listened to them, recorded the conversation, and accidentally sent it out to one of their contacts, which is what actually happened to another family who was having a conversation, and Alexa got activated, recorded the conversation, and mailed it to somebody. So I think what people have to really be thinking about is, in a very old school way, we need to continue to honor privileged and sensitive information, and then understand in a very new school way in this digital age that if you do share that information with somebody, it could either accidentally or on purpose, and in this case it sounds like it was on purpose based on the results of the forensic investigation, get shared in a digital way that could go viral and could be very damaging to the people whose information has actually been breached. That privacy and trust has been breached.
Absolutely. And so what security risks come from using a burner or anonymous account that no one knows about, especially for a high-level executive? Are there some sort of extra cyber risks towards that as well?
There are. And so for starters, here's the thing. I mean, we see this all the time here at Fortalist Solutions, where the aggressor will set up a fake name, tie that fake name to an email account, then create fake social media accounts. They may even go so far as to get burner phone numbers and tie those to the social media accounts, and then they think, aha, no one's ever going to figure out who I am. And for the most part, if these tweets had just sounded like a disgruntled fan, that might have been the case. Where these tweets crossed the line was releasing private, sensitive medical information, the physical taunts and potential perceived threats from these posts. And when you cross that line, especially you're doing that to people who are in the public eye, that's when law enforcement could get engaged. And that's exactly what happened here. That medical information, that private sensitive information, potential physical threats against individuals or individuals not feeling safe, that's when law enforcement gets involved. And let me tell you something. We can and we will find people who create this kind of mischief and cross the line and put people's physical safety or emotional safety in danger.
Right, and I think we're starting to see the ramifications of this because he was let go of the 76ers today, or I guess when this goes out, I guess on Thursday of last week. Are there any actual legal ramifications of this as well? Like, this isn't illegal, right?
There could be actually legal ramifications. Many states have enacted cyber stalking and cyber harassment laws. And it's possible where when the medical information was released and or some of the taunting and sort of that crossing the line, almost a physical threat, it is possible if the individuals want to press charges saying this caused me undue duress and I want to file charges under cyber harassment, it could be possible that the state's attorney general says, I agree, and I'm going to let the case go forward. It'll really just depend on what laws are on the books here, what laws are going to apply. Do the victims of this want to actually press charges? Do the 76ers want to press charges? Or it's possible they may decide as a team, lots of lessons learned here. Let's get this out of the press and let's get back to doing what we do best. Let's go play ball.
I mean, this whole situation is really just fascinating. And I think we heard earlier in the season that Kevin Durant had a burner account on Twitter as well, where he was tweeting kind of, I guess, defense of himself with different fans. So how common do you think these anonymous accounts might actually be?
They're very common. I mean, if you think about social media, you do not have to present a driver's license, a birth certificate, a passport. You can set up as many accounts as you want. As a matter of fact, in many cases, kind of the good guys actually create alternate identities to be able to do investigations, to be able to observe people who are bad people who are trying to do other people or businesses or governments harm. You create these different alternate identities, just like people might have alternate identities that, are spies and trying to really understand what's going on, or like an undercover cop may not be telling people their real name because they're undercover. And so what you see is, because we don't make people validate and verify, you can have those types of accounts being used for good to stop bad from happening, but they can also be used for mischief, for bad, and for even worse, for launching physical threats or conducting social engineering campaigns against other individuals.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And then I guess looking forward for one of my last questions is whether younger athletes, maybe athletes that haven't been drafted yet or still kind of coming up in the high school and college scene, we've seen that they need to start being more careful about their social media presence. So does this kind of just send that message home even further, that they need to be very careful on social media because it could affect their future potentially?
Yes, and there's a couple of things here that I would really like to caution everybody, both kind of the young players coming up and hopefully coming into sort of playing competitively at this professional level, but also for players who have been pros for a while. There are several things you can do to protect yourself. And the first thing is kind of look at the things you're posting, even if you think the type of social media platform you're using that it gets, quote, deleted and goes away. It just means you can't see it, but it's probably still there. People can do screen capture. So I always say, pretend there's a really bad criminal and your grandmom looking over your shoulder. And if you'd be embarrassed for your grandmom to see it, or the criminal could use it against you, don't post it online. The other thing I want professional athletes to be thinking about is the fact that you will be a target, unfortunately, and I can't tell you how many times we work with professional athletes where bad guys hack into their cloud accounts and they take sensitive messages that are meant to remain private. They take photos and videos that are meant to remain private, and they either threaten or they do dump them on the internet, and that is just absolutely terrible when that happens. And a way to safeguard against that is, number one, get an email address you don't use anyplace else. Number two, two-factor authentication. That's setting it up that nobody can log into your account without a code going to your phone, and then setting up notifications every time somebody's trying to log into your account from like a new device or a different geography. Those little steps, which are free, and I know a little annoying to do, but they will pay off for you in the long run, because it is such a shame when these hackers get into professional athletes' accounts and really create emotional distress for them. And that's just something you don't need. You need to be using your God-given talents to perform and to do your job. And so if you can do those things, if you can sort of do that bad guy and grandma rule, and then think about two-factor authentication, using an email address that you don't use anywhere else, that is really going to take you a long way for protecting your privacy and security.
Absolutely. Those are great tips. Well, those were all of my questions. Was there anything that I missed or something that you wanted to talk about before we go?
No, this was fantastic. It was super easy talking to you and great questions.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a fantastic talking to you, too.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks to everyone who listened. This is episode 47, which is pretty incredible, and our second episode with Alex Coop. So how do you feel?
I am feeling very good. I am glad to be here and glad to be talking with you about tech and sports, Mandy.
Oh, yeah. All right, you can follow us on Twitter at ITV Tech and Sports, or our personal accounts at Mandy V. Kovacs, and It's Just Alex Coop. We're also now available in a daily format if you'd rather listen to us that way as well. So be sure to check us out. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time.